This is the training for the 2015 May 2nd Administration of 8th grade reading. You should have already completed the test security training on our campus, and you are responsible for reading the test security supplement that's located in our staff common under assessment, as well as your test administrator manual. The 8th grade reading STAR test will take place on May the 12th, and all makeups will take place between the 13th and the 15th for anyone who may have missed the first administration. Please remember that the time period will start after the test administrator has read directions and tells students to begin working on their test. Start time for the test session must be recorded on the seating chart, and students must record all responses before the end of the 4-hour time period. They will not be given additional time to record their responses on their answer documents. Once the time period has ended, test administrators will instruct any students still testing to put their pencils down, close their test booklets, or exit their online test. Stop time for the test session must be recorded on the seating chart. Communicate orally or in writing the amount of time left to test in 1-hour intervals, and if desired, in shorter intervals during the last hour. Students who do not complete their test within the time limit should submit what they have completed. Students arriving late will be assessed as to whether or not they have ample time to test and include their lunch break and their 4-hour time requirement before the day is over. Students who begin testing after others have started will have a later stop time, and late arriving students must be kept aware of the time they have left to test. Breaks included in the time limit, not allowed to stop the clock, are water breaks, bathroom breaks, snack breaks, and short physical or mental breaks. Breaks not included in the time limit, these are breaks that are allowed to stop the clock, are lunch, emergency situations that significantly interrupt testing, consolidation and movement of students to another testing area, or medical breaks. Test administrators must document the stop and restart times when breaks are given for those that are allowed to have the clock stop. Please make sure that if you do place a student in the hall for a break, that the hall monitor is made aware that that student is still testing and that they are to watch them and monitor them until they're done with their break. Students may be stopped to take a supervised lunch. The testing time must be stopped for a lunch break and will restart when students resume taking the test. Stop and restart times must be recorded on the seating chart. Students must place their answer documents inside their test booklets so that all secure materials can be collected and placed in locked storage or picked up for overflow testing. If students are testing online, they must exit the test. Students must be monitored by trained testing personnel and are not allowed to discuss any test content during lunch. All SSI testers will have lunch on this day. Those with extra time or those that did not finish prior to lunch and still have 15 minutes of their 4 hours left to test will be picked up for overflow testing and taken to eat lunch silently and finish their test. Dictionaries must be made available to all students taking STAR and STAR A 8th grade reading. The following types of dictionaries are allowable: standard dictionaries in English, a dictionary thesaurus combination, bilingual dictionaries, ESL dictionaries, and sign language dictionaries. Both paper and electronic dictionaries are permitted. However, electronic dictionaries that provide access to the internet or have photographic capabilities are not allowed. For electronic dictionaries that are handheld devices, test administrators must ensure that any features that allow note-taking or uploading of files have been cleared of their contents both before and after the test administration. For students with testing accommodations, the Special Ed Department and Testing Coordinator will preview and check all testing accommodations prior to testing. All accommodations will be made available via email to the test administrator 1 week prior to testing. On the day of testing, a green testing accommodation roster will be placed in your testing bucket, listing all of the accommodations and materials needed for your students. The materials needed will also be placed inside of your testing bucket. The testing coordinator will verify and notify those students with accommodations, and the test administrator will need to sign off on the roster to ensure they are aware and understand what accommodations the students will receive. These signed pages will be returned back in with your testing materials and kept on file. Some students may qualify for linguistic accommodations depending on their LPAC committee meeting. Those accommodations may include, for English, they may have dictionaries of various types, and extra time, and clarification in English of word meaning. Your accommodation roster will let you know if this is a student that qualifies for these accommodations, and the materials will be in your bucket. Certain procedures and materials are available to any student who regularly benefits from their use during instruction. These may be signing test administration directions, translating directions only into the native language of an English language learner, allowing a student to read tests aloud to themselves, reading aloud or signing personal narrative, expository, literary, or persuasive writing prompts, making assistive tools available, for example, scratch paper, colored overlays, highlighters, colored pencils, crayons, blank place markers, or magnifying devices, giving permission for students to use tools to minimize distractions like stress balls, allowing individual and small group administration, and gently reminding students to stay on task. Allowable testing procedures and materials will be included on your accommodation rosters if the testing coordinator was made aware of their use prior to the testing day. Page 13 in your manual lists all of the allowable procedures and materials. If a student requests something that is allowable but was not listed on your accommodation roster, please let your hall monitor know what you need and we will provide that for you. Testing security and confidentiality. Every test administrator must undergo test security training prior to test administration. Administer tests according to the manual, no deviation. No person may view, reveal, or discuss the contents of a test booklet or online assessment. Only students may respond to test questions, perform calculations, use strategies, and create rough drafts to written responses. Test administrators conducting an oral administration or who are transcribing student responses must be aware that they are viewing secure content and are required to sign a separate section of the test administrator's oath. If you suspect that students are cheating on the STAR exam, test administrators should immediately stop the student that is suspected of cheating. Note that stop time on the seating chart. Contact the campus testing coordinator to let him or her know cheating is suspected. However, do not investigate without contacting the CTC. You cannot review student answer documents or test booklets without authorization from TEA. The CTC will contact the DTC prior to starting the investigation. If a campus determines that a student has been involved in an attempt to cheat on a state assessment, the campus is required to invalidate the student's test by marking the score code O for other on the student answer document for the corresponding test. Additional disciplinary action may be taken at the local level in accordance with district policy. The O documentation form must be completed. If you think there may be an issue with two students who are communicating with each other and you stop their testing, I also advise that you move their seating and note that on the seating chart as well. Page 32 in your manual goes over the process for testing and emergencies. If a school emergency arises that represents an actual or potential danger to students, such as a fire alarm, students should go quietly outside following campus regulations for exiting the building. Leave your testing materials in the room along with any other materials that the students may have. They don't need to take their backpacks or cell phones out of the rooms with them. Students need to remain quiet during an emergency and make sure that they're not discussing any parts of the test in the event that they would be able to return to the test and continue their test. Please make sure that as you come back you have noted the time that you asked the students to stop testing so that you can note that on your seating chart as well. Then students will have their test restarted and we will note the restart time. If it's a campus-wide emergency, we will come over the PA system to note the restart time. Test administrators will follow school policies and guidelines for any emergencies. You must keep your rooms unlocked during testing, but keep your keys accessible in the event that your room needs to be locked. If you are not testing in your classroom, then pick up a magnet for your door lock so that you will be safe if your door needs to be locked quickly. Magnets can be picked up from us at Test Bucket Checkout. Just remember, teacher and student safety is always our top priority. The responsibility of a testing administrator is to prepare for the administration and review administration materials. Read your test administration manual and test security supplement. Review and sign the security oath. Prepare the test environment ensure proper testing procedures, administer your STAR assessments, complete the administration process, maintain test security and confidentiality at all times, and report any irregularities to your campus coordinator immediately. To prepare for testing, please review pages 26 through 29 in your Test Administrator Manual, and make sure that you review your rosters and your roster accommodations to make sure you're prepared for the students that you will be working with. On page 26 through page 27, you will find the guidelines for preparing your testing environment. You need to make sure that your rooms are prepared, that the rooms have areas where sufficiently the students will be separated. Make sure you hang a testing do not disturb sign on the door. All bulletin boards and instructional displays that might be a source of direct answers need to be covered. Clocks, either analog or digital, need to be available in the testing room. All desks or computers used for testing must be cleared of books and other materials not required for the test. If you're giving the STAR A or SOA, make every effort to prevent students from seeing one another's monitor, and ensure that there is one pair of headphones per student for online administration. For your seating chart, please include the names of students that are being tested. Make sure the location of each student in the room is noted at the bottom of the seating chart. Make sure that all the names of all the test administrators and monitors involved in the session are listed on the seating chart or in the relief form. Additional seating charts must be completed if students are moved to another room during testing. Seating charts must include the start and stop times for each session, including stop and restart times for students who are permitted a break that stops the time clock. Schedules must be created that adhere to the time limit requirements for testing. And if you move a student during testing, you want to make sure that you note that on the seating chart as well. All of the required testing materials will be located in your testing bucket when you check your buckets out prior to testing. For paper administration, you'll have pencils with erasers and a clock or timer, one test booklet per student, one answer document per student, your room accommodations roster if applicable, your seating chart, testing do not disturb sign, cell phone policy, and any other additional TEA authorized materials needed for administering the test. Online administration will have all of those same items with the exception of a booklet. There will not be one for online students, and there will not be a Scantron for online students. Those students only have a student authorization form, and that is your secure testing material. In order to ensure that proper testing procedures are taking place, please make sure that there is a trained test administrator present in the testing room at all times during the administration. At least one test administrator must be present for every 30 students. No cell phones are permitted. If a break is given which stops the clock, please check and double check once testing resumes that you've calculated the correct ending time. Test administrators must actively monitor the testing room while students are working and ensure that students are marking their responses on the correct section of the answer document. Other testing procedures to be aware of are that answers that are marked in the test booklet will not be scored. Students must transfer their answers from the test booklet to the Scantron in order to make sure this test will be scored. Students must be reminded periodically to record their responses on those answer documents by saying, "Remember that you must record your responses on the answer document." It is permissible to encourage students to stay on task. Only students are allowed to erase their stray marks or darken answer choice circles. You might say to the student, "Be sure to erase any stray marks that you might have accidentally made on your answer document." A student who arrives after a test session has begun may be tested if sufficient time remains in the day. Also, the student may test only if he or she has not had the opportunity to interact with other students who have been administered the same test. This is a sample of the Scantron that the students will receive for the 8th grade reading test. Please make sure that they are filling in where it says test book number that's located on the back of their test booklet. Please make sure that as the test administrator, you bubble in S for score for all students who took the assessment. If you have students who were absent that day, or who you may have thought were cheating and have been turned into the campus testing coordinator, the campus testing coordinator will be responsible for bubbling the A's or the O's on the Scantron. All you need to be responsible for is to make sure that they have put their test booklet number there and bubble the S for score. There is no form number on this particular Scantron, so you don't have to worry about that. Please also make sure that students are not changing or bubbling any of their information that has already been pre-coded for them on their Scantron. Please refer to page 34 in your test administrator's manual on answering student questions. Test administrators may answer questions about test directions or procedures only. Test administrators are never allowed to answer any questions related to the content of the test itself. They can say, "I can't answer that for you, just do the best that you can." When collecting test materials, test administrators should quickly scan answer documents only to verify that responses are marked. If a student has not done so, the TA must say, "You've not recorded your responses on the answer document. Please go back and mark your answers on it now." Make sure the name of each student is written on his or her test booklet before you collect it. Verify that no answer documents have been left in the test booklet. Buckets need to be returned just as they were received, so please make sure that you put all your signs back in the orange folder. Any students who are absent go in the pink folder, and those go to the counselor. Any of your log sheets, your emergency log, or overflow forms that weren't used go back in your blue folder. Any materials that the students used, scratch paper, graph paper, their formula charts, all of those things must be placed in the to be shred folder. Students are not allowed to turn those into the trash can, and teachers are not allowed to keep those. Make sure that your folder with all your testing plans and directions is returned. Your test booklets need to be number side up in order from least to greatest. Your Scantrons in alphabetical order, and any items that were in your pencil bag need to be replaced back. Make sure the timer has the batteries removed, please. And everything goes back into your bucket and is brought to us in the same area where we did bucket checkout. Test bucket checkout begins at 7:45 in the area outside the nurse's office. You must sign out all of your materials on the material control forms. Mrs. Blackshire and Mrs. Martinez will conduct the bucket checkout and bucket check-in. All rooms will be walked on May 11th to ensure that they're ready for testing on the 12th. Testing will begin at 9 o'clock, and Mr. McDonald will announce that over the PA system. If you have a student that needs transcribing, you will complete this in the testing room with the student present if the 4-hour time limit has not expired. If it has, then you will transcribe when you come to check in your bucket, and I will check over that your transcription is correct on the Scantron. At bucket checkout, test administrators are required to bring the test administrator manual so that we can ensure that you do have a manual for testing for that day. All of the directions for testing are made available to you in your test administrator manual. The directions must be read aloud word for word, and the say directions are in bold. The words that are in italics are information meant only for you and should not be read aloud to students. The STAR reading directions begin on page 61, and the STAR A directions begin on page 101. For STAR A and for STAR with oral administration, the following slides contain information for test administrators giving STAR A or STAR with oral administration. For STAR reading, grade 8, the test questions, answer choices, and required reference material can be read. This includes the dictionary. Reading selections may not be read aloud to the student. The test administrator will need to know the level of support a student will need for an oral administration. Reading parts of the test question and/or answer choices at the student request will be noted as a Y-W on your accommodation roster. Reading all the test questions and answer choices throughout the test will be noted as Y-E on your testing accommodations roster. For reading tests, only the questions and answer choices may be read aloud to an eligible student. The student must read the selection first. When the student has finished reading the selection, the test administrator may read aloud each test question and then read the answer choices. The test questions and answer choices must be read aloud in the order they are presented. The reading selections may never be read aloud to a student. Test administrators may read aloud any word, phrase, or sentence in the test questions and answer choices as many times as needed. At the end of the test administrator may go back to reread a question and its answer choices at a student's request. The test administrator may wait to read aloud the next question and answer choices until all students are ready to go on. Test administrators may also walk around the room and quietly read aloud the questions and answer choices to students at their own pace. Please keep in mind, though, you must pace your time limit if your room has students in it that do not have extra time, and make sure that you'll have plenty of time to get through all the test questions in your 4-hour time limit. When a test question contains a text box, you may read aloud the text. Do not interpret or analyze any of the information. For both STAR and STAR A, all security measures outlined in the TA manual must be followed. TAs must be aware that they are viewing secure content and are therefore required to initial and sign an additional section of the Oath of Test Security and Confidentiality for test administrators. TAs may not respond to test questions, make notes about test questions, or discuss the content of the test at any time. TAs must not rephrase, clarify, or interpret any test content. TAs must keep their voice inflection neutral. However, words that are bold-faced, italicized, or printed entirely in capital letters must be emphasized. Unauthorized verbal and nonverbal assistance may not be provided to students. Each TA should review the test administrator training video for STAR A, developed by TEA. This will ensure that the test administrator is fully aware of what the students will be using during the test. The link below will get you to the TEA website for the STAR A training video. One question that has been asked during the last few rounds of testing is the test administrator allowed to set up the student's online preferences for STAR A, or can a reminder card with the student's preferences be provided to each student? This question is in regards to the settings in the accessibility panel, specifically the text-to-speech speed and volume, the zoom size, and the color and contrast options. The test administrator may not set up the student's accommodation preferences, nor can the test administrator require a student to use the preferences determined during the tutorials. However, a test administrator may provide the student with a reminder card that indicates the settings that the student prefers as determined during the tutorial session. Students may need assistance when setting up their preferences. The test administrator can reread any of the SAY directions to assist the students with setting up their tools. The directions will instruct the test administrator to assist any students having difficulty after each preference is reviewed. Can the test administrator assist students having difficulty navigating through STAR A? At any point during the test session, the test administrator may use the SAY directions or paraphrase directions from the test administrator manual to assist students if they have trouble navigating through the assessment or need reminders of how to turn the tools and accessibility features on and off. In addition, the test administrator may read aloud the information presented to the student in the help tool. Directions for online tools can be found on page 161. This is optional for TAs because students should be familiar from tutorials. The directions will go over the use of the accessibility features and embedded accommodations. The blue dot under a word or phrase alerts the student to click on the word or phrase. A pop-up box will appear and provide a definition, synonym, picture, graphic organizer, formula, or animation. The pop-up will appear either above or below the blue dot. Clicking on the X will close the pop-up. Pop-ups define or clarify, construct irrelevant words, phrases, and sentences using plain language, synonyms, definitions, and consistent language. They provide a visual representation in the selection, question, answer choices by adding graphics, photographs, or animations. They isolate specific information in a question that corresponds to each answer choice. They isolate specific text or information in a selection that is referenced in the question or answer choice. Rollovers can be read to the student on reading questions and answers. For a rollover, a small blue box near words or phrases alerts the students to click the box. The rollover will cover the original text when open. Clicking on the X will close the rollover. Rollovers reword complex questions, answer choices, or boxed text in a selection. Can pop-ups and rollovers be read aloud by text-to-speech? Text-to-speech does not read aloud pop-ups and rollovers. However, the test administrator may read aloud these embedded accommodations at the student's request. The test administrator may not read aloud any text in reading selections, editing selections, and editing items. This will be indicated by a do not read icon. Only pop-ups and rollovers can be read aloud by the test administrator. Text-to-speech. When the play button is activated, the question and answer choices are read aloud. Audio plays continuously to the end or until the student stops playback. When the play button is activated, it becomes a pause button with which the student can interrupt the playback. When the continuous read mode is in use or has been paused, the rewind button can be used to reset the audio back to the beginning of the question. The rate at which the audio is read can be increased or decreased by adjusting the percentage with the plus or minus button or by moving the slider. The student can click Text-to-Speech in the Accessibility panel to open a panel of audio controls, including the play button, the volume, playback rate, click-to-hear, and words-only controls. The student can increase or decrease the volume of the audio. The Click-to-Hear button allows the student to begin audio playback at the point in the question, answer choice, or pre-reading text where the student clicks. The Words Only checkbox allows the student to hear only one word at a time. Pre-reading text, reading test questions and answer choices are read aloud via computer-generated read-aloud functionality. The test administrator will not read any of these aloud. In review, what will be read by the computer? The questions and answer choices, text-to-speech, and the pre-reading text using the Click-to-Hear button. What will be read by a test administrator at the student request? Pop-ups and rollovers in the test questions and reference materials. What can never be read? Reading selections, anything that is read by the computer, and pop-ups in the reading selection. Before the end of the test, when students are finished and get to the section review, have them raise their hand before submitting. The test administrator should ensure the student is not submitting a blank test. If student has not completed the test questions, use the statement, "You've not recorded your answers in the computer. Please go back and mark the answers on it now." Collect the student authorization form and turn that in with your testing materials, and collect all scratch paper and turn that in with your testing materials as well. Please remember, if you have any questions during testing, to stop, lock, and call. This concludes the STAR and STAR A training for the 8th grade reading test that we will be giving on campus May the 12th. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact Stacy Blackshare at extension 5215. Thank you.